Hi everyone, this is Karak from ACG, bringing you a review for Might and Magic Heroes VII, a turn-based strategy game from Limbic Entertainment. Might and Magic Heroes VII is the 7th in the title series, as you probably would guess from the damn name, but let's see if Might and Magic VII has improved on the problems with 6, which is pretty much the entire game. I mean, 6 launched with its level of problems somewhere around the Master Chief Collection and Assassin's Creed Unity. Will Might and Magic Heroes VII at least run? Hey, let's hope. And if it's fun, that might just be a bonus. Remember to subscribe if you like the video. Graphics are up first. When riding your various beasts across the wildlands, the game world, well, it actually doesn't look that good. It has fairly good texturing and environmental effects like wind whipping through trees that have seen better days and probably shouldn't have been planted in a land known for poison and vampiric mists. And that does keep your eyes interested, but you just can't ignore some of what's going on here with fairly basic geometry on the overland maps and an overall washed out look to much of it, despite being offset by some interesting water textures and the occasional good looking gothic building. The art style does improve tremendously when battling mono-y monstero within the battle areas, and though they themselves aren't that interesting, the monster design and animations look pretty good as long as you understand that collision detection is a word foreign to most of these games and their developers. Magical ghost blades wisp through the most solid looking bodies only to somehow inflict damage regardless of apparently not hitting and being made of melted friggin' Rolos and kids' prayers to get ponies for Christmas. That giant issue being ignored for a moment, I love the art design and the overall look of the creatures, and regardless of which of the many factions you choose to be or choose to try to hammer into the earth like it needs an extra hole, it all looks good. Sometimes the camera zooms in on the action and shows you a nice close-up view, but really, most of the time you're just going to end up seeing one half of a rock that's so close you can notice individual atoms. I really do wish the camera was a bit more actiony, but still didn't take away from the strategy, because there is some prettiness here and there, and even with various special effects maxed out, its frame rate was solidly above 60 frames per second at 1440p at all times. I guess I'd say a mixed bag, but I really do like the art style itself. But this game's not going to win any awards. Sound, music, and voice.
Proposal shows that our enemies are on the brink of rupture.
Seamus offers us half the fruit to save the tree. The time is ripe to cut it down. The time is ripe.
And of course, sound is up first. Aside from the occasional horse galloping or occasionally misheard environmental effect, there isn't much to be heard in the overland map. This is a game like my sex life where 90% of the good stuff happens in the dirt. Once you engage in battle, spell, crackle, enemies shriek, deer. Well, I don't exactly know what a deer sounds like, but it sounds real deery here. The sounds are good, though many times there's a pretty easy to notice love of the middle of the spectrum with some mud, but since only 2 creatures are fighting at any one time, it wasn't all that bad. Music. Okay, honestly, I love this. Sure, as much as I love it, they love their big cellos and violins and other stringed instruments, and at times it can get a bit hedonistic in its desire to sound as epic as it can because big dudes with swords fight for reasons. In the end, it was still grand, in your face, and suitably fantasy-like. A couple tracks did have a bit more subtlety to them, but I mean, all in all, it was a good bombastic soundtrack that fits dudes who look like they were born in the wombs of women who eat nothing but steel and adrenal glands. Voice. Okay, so the main actors I didn't like so much, other than a couple of the female voice actors who handled their various parts very well, but where I did love it were some of the quest givers alongside the various roads within the main character's travels. Some of them are a little less than human, and somehow they removed all the cheese. It was just really, really well done voice acting by those bit parts, and they seemed to actually overshadow the larger parts, which I found strange and at the same time sort of cool. Gameplay. There's not going to be many surprises. Nothing has changed. No, seriously. Nothing has changed. These games, and many others like it, are titles that spin their development lines in the same track as Madden games or other yearly sequels. They almost always follow the same overall track. Ride a steed around a land, occasionally gather resources and allies, items and armies, until you and your army are ready to battle whichever appropriately placed bad guy is put in front of you. For true success, these games really depend more on a balance than many other titles actually do. Balance of resources versus numbers versus territory gain. It's that balance that matters matters almost more than anything within these types of titles. And I have to say, for the most part, 7 doesn't do too shabby. It has a large number of campaign quests, all told from various different facets, because the Duke is thinking of alienating everything that has brought the Alliance success, but he sits down with those that have allied with him and allows them to all tell him stories which allude to the campaigns themselves to sort of try to steer him to make a good decision. Each is from a different leader. Very fun stuff, and actually well done. Each campaign tells a different tale and does so with different gameplay styles, for at least a couple of them, branching off into multi-hero questing very quickly. I did find it somewhat odd that the main cutscenes between the leaders was done with this odd freeze frame type of storytelling without moving lips or, well, moving at all. It actually worked really well from an art style standpoint, but I could actually see some people thinking that there was a glitch for a moment. Now, as you play, you find other quests, sort of side things to do as you continue on the main quest, whatever that may actually be, taking out enemies of enemies of enemies, or breaking out prisoners with snidely whiplash negotiations to team up later, and balancing resources and upgrading your keep to create newer, bigger, and badder collision detection varying bad guys. It's actually a nice little dichotomy that begins here. You see, when playing the campaign, I started using quick battle, somewhat early actually, unless there was a big worry about losing. This allowed me to enjoy the story and explore at a different pace, and I was surprised to rarely be surprised by the outcomes. However, the game has a number of different gameplay modes, one of which is AI versus single player, and leaping into battles with various heroes and somewhat random armies at any time. It was great to sit back and test out strategies on various bad guys to see who could do what if I needed to test it in the main campaign. It also let me see a bit about army cohesion and how to best use flanking, which is possibly the most powerful thing within the game. I just loved flanking enemies and seeing how much extra damage I could do. It was always fun circling around an enemy and stabbing him Moscow style, only to have them live and do the same thing to me. Balance seems somewhat good, and magic use as well as hero attacks all allowed me to layer strategies upon one another, and for the most part they all worked. Now, hero upgrading was also very useful, not only in adding skills to your hero, but adding them to your armies from time to time, or skills that you have that sort of affect your army, really digging in that feeling of a hero leading an army long enough that the army performs better underneath them. Some monsters have pretty useful skills as well, but nothing too outlandish, and that heavy hand to control hard hitters seems to have touched everything within the game to sort of mellow it out. Cities continue to allow you to upgrade and create units, and I have to say the different factions are actually suitably unique enough that playing them never felt like carbon copies of one another, and that's a problem that most games of this kind always seem to have. Now, lastly, the game does have modding tools and an editor, but their use is most likely going to bear out at a later time, and it could add some really cool value to the title if this catches on. But between the various gameplay modes, you have an almost impenetrable number of hours of gameplay. Fun factorino. You know, I enjoyed what I played, and I love the various different campaign modes for testing and just sitting back playing games of monster on monster loving or diving into the campaigns themselves. But something about the title always seemed a bit off, and I never could fully engage in the game. I had some issues with bugs as well, and the 64-bit executable eats memory space like a fucking black hole. No matter how much RAM I threw at it, it chewed it up, and over time I noticed a strange stuttering that was repaired via a save and a reload. In the end, I would say it was pretty fun, but it wasn't a great time. So I rate games on a buy, wait for a sale, deep sale, or never touch it again rating scale, and this is a wait for a sale. In my book, it does offer some very solid enjoyment and does what it sets out to competently, but not at a level where the general sameness is something that's worth a full 50 or 60 bucks depending on what version you buy. It has a pretty good balance and a long campaign, but nothing in it seems to really get my goat and make me want to continue to play, and certainly I wouldn't say anything is excellent or in the great category. It's a fairly average game with less issues for me than its predecessor had, but doesn't offer anything fresh or new that kept me coming back. Well, honestly, aside from that skirmish mode, the AI versus human mode I spoke about, as a fan of that kind of thing, I really did enjoy it. Now, when it comes down to it, if you like these kinds of games, you're probably not going to be disappointed. It has an incredible number of monsters and characters to play, and as I said, just an almost impenetrable number of hours. However, I'm not exactly sure if you would be excited about it, and to me, that's a big deal. So anyway, that's it for me. I hope you guys liked the review. If you did, hit thumbs up. If you didn't, hit thumbs down. And as always, peace out.